Hello, and welcome to the Movie Mouth Film and TV Podcast, a podcast for the casual, diehard, or nerdiest of filmgoer. On this week, we have an embarrassment of movie releases to discuss, where we'll be giving you our honest, spoiler-free opinion on Chloe Zhao's Marvel debut with MCU's The Eternals, Denis Villeneuve's long-awaited Frank Herbert adaptation Dune, Wes Anderson's newest caper, The French Dispatch. Then we have Edgar Wright's first foray into straight-up horror with Last Night in Soho, before finally slapping Matt Damon and Adam Driver in the face with a velvet glove in Ridley Scott's The Last Duel. All this, plus in our recurring Video Store Corner classic film discussion section, we sit down to watch a film that neither one of us had seen, but it was voted for by you, our listener, on an Instagram poll. Yes, I'm perfectly okay in space, you fucking idiot! It's 1981's Sean Connery sci-fi Outland. On top of it all, we will be discussing the latest film news, trailer reactions, and throwing in as much geekery as you've come to expect from Team Movie Mouth. This is Miles, and as ever, I am joined by a man who once said, "Today you people are no longer maggots. Today you are movie mouthers. You're part of a brotherhood. From now on until the day you die, wherever you are, every movie mouther is your brother. Most of all, you will go to the movie theater. Some of you will not come back. But always remember this, movie mouthers die. That's what we're here for. But the Movie Mouth podcast lives forever, and that means you live forever." It's Gunnery Sergeant Phil. Hi, Phil.
Hello there.
How are you, old boy?
I'm all right. How are you?
Yeah, not bad, not bad. Cracking
Good.
on. What's new in your life at the moment?
It's fireworks night.
Oh,
That's
what
exciting.
does that
isn't it?
mean? What does it mean?
Well-
Is that July 4th? Is it some kind of independent
I
holiday?
mean, you know what it means as a Brit, but I think trying to explain it to Americans is probably quite difficult. Just
You stick a
because of the
fake guy in a wheelbarrow, you drive it around town, you go up to people's doors, knock on the door, ask for a penny, and then you take it, throw it on a bonfire, you set fire to it, and everyone cheers in jubilation as this thing goes up in flames.
Yeah, I mean, it's basically a celebration of of a terrorist, isn't it? But
Is
it's
it a
fine because
celebration
it was
of
ages
a
ago.
terrorist, or is it a celebration of a terrorist being burnt for his crimes?
Well, both. Yeah, I suppose. Yeah, that's more likely. More likely what's about, isn't it? Still, but yeah, so listeners, if you do hear pops and bangs, it's not my bum, it's it's the sound of fireworks being let off that I can't control.
It might be my bum, though.
It might be mine, I'm just lying.
That's funny. I just managed to take off all of my makeup from Halloween this year. Had a nice little dress up.
I saw the photos, it was amazing.
I posted it on our Movie Mouth Instagram, but you may not have seen it. I dressed up as Marv from the Wet Bandits, and I went with a friend to one of my good friends' Halloween house parties, as Marv and Harry, and we won the funniest award costume.
You won
And
it?
Yeah, we won it. Yeah, and I had
well deserved, but
it was awesome. I actually had
good.
this one woman came up to me. We were in the kitchen, and bear in mind it was like 1 a.m. But this one woman came up to me. I think she was trying to remember who she was dressed as. I think she was dressed as like a ninja or something. And she came up to me and she was like, "Hey, you should watch this movie Home Alone because you look just like the guy that's in it." And I was like, "Well, it's funny you say that because that's who I'm dressed as. I don't just go around with a iron imprint on my face."
I've not really been struck by an iron from a height.
Well, I mean, wouldn't be the first time, but no, not on this occasion. But no, it was really fun. It was a good Halloween. It was a very American Halloween. We went all in this year. And yeah, that was that.
Brilliant.
What have you been watching this week, Phil? More important.
Do you know what I did watch on the Halloween theme? I watched, for the first time in a long time, I watched The Exorcist because it was on the telly box.
Did it scare the living piss out of you by any chance?
It was more freaky though. I've not seen it for a long, long time, and it was more freaky than I remember. And I can definitely see why it got banned at the time
Yeah.
as well. It's pretty inappropriate, isn't it? But
William
it's very
Friedkin's
good.
1973 horror classic, I believe.
Yeah, it was very good. It was very good, and it was interesting to see the after you've been on the location quite recently.
Yeah,
It's
on the
interesting to see
stairs.
that.
And the
Yeah,
end
on
that
the
Father
stairs.
Karras falls down.
Yeah,
Oh.
flipping over there. Yeah, it's really good.
They apparently put some rubber like trimming on those stairs, but I got to say,
I bet
they're pretty steep and they're very hard. They're real stone, stairs that they've got there.
Yeah.
In Georgetown, DC, this is, listeners.
But one thing about that is that he goes flying out the window, right? And then down the stairs.
Yeah.
But like after that, when she's getting in the car and she's all well, and you see where the window is compared to the stairs, it looks nowhere near it. It's like a mile away.
And having been to the house, I can tell you it is a long way. Like, he flew. He didn't fall out of the window. He flew out of that window. He'd be dead by the time he hit the top of the stairs, not even the bottom.
That distance.
Yeah.
But still, not taking away anything from it. It's a great.
Was that your Halloween movie that you watched?
Yeah, I didn't really watch anything else Halloweeny. No, that was it. Exorcist for me. So I went all serious. None of that slasher rubbish.
No,
I went for full.
I did. I did the complete opposite. I watched slasher rubbish. I watched Freaky, which is another Blumhouse horror production, one of those $5 million budgeted Blumhouse productions for Universal, starring Vince Vaughn as a serial killer, as a slasher in a town. I'm a slasher. I must be stopped. And he, a slasher of prices. I run the local supermarché. Going back to the film. Vince Vaughn is a serial killer, and over the course of a night, due to this weird weapon that he touches and stabs this young girl with, they change each other's bodies. So she inhabits the body of Vince Vaughn, this young girl, and Vince Vaughn, as a killer, inhabits the body of this teenage girl in high school.
So it's Blumhouse vice versa.
It's Blumhouse vice versa. It's exactly that. It's exactly that. But it's kind of fun, kind of stupid. Can't say I'd recommend it. There's a really weird scene in that film I wish I could talk about, but I don't think the film's been out long enough. But all I'll say is that Vince Vaughn makes out with a very young boy in the back of a car.
Oh God.
And the more I say about that, the more chances are that I'm going to be arrested. So I'm going to not say anything else. What else have you been watching?
Not too much else really. I'm sort of rewatching Squid Game at the moment because my wife started watching it. It's interesting seeing it for a second time round. Have you watched any of that yet?
So I watched all of it after our last episode where you recommended it and said that you were watching it and how obsessed you were with it. Yeah, I watched it. We watched it in about 2 or 3 days.
Yeah, whole thing. It's only like 9 episodes or whatever it was.
But still, I mean, it's like, a punishing schedule to sit through 9 episodes of people being executed left, right, and center.
Yeah. What did you think of it? Without, no
absolutely
spoilers?
Loved it.
I
absolutely loved it. No spoilers. Absolutely loved it. And yes, that's all I will say about that.
Okay.
Definitely one that I'd go back and watch again. It's good to see Netflix doing this kind of original content over like a lot of the stuff they can kind of pumping out at the moment, like You and Bridgerton and things that aren't really, maybe for me, I don't know, but going back to some of that original hard-hitting content is good.
It's good to see some world cinema stuff like that getting such a public recognition as well. Yeah, like it's everywhere in it. It went complete meme crazy with that.
It did, and I was talking to Jason Kim, friend of the podcast. Featured on our Bond special. He obviously is a Korean American, and I asked him when we were down in Baltimore a few weeks ago whether I should watch it with the dub or with the subtitles, and he was like, subtitles all the way. The dub is apparently really bad, so I watched it with the subtitles.
Never watched dubs. I never ever watched dubs. I don't care
so much character in that. Like,
I know, because you're watching someone else's, listening to someone else's performance.
Yeah,
but watching someone else's performance,
I
can't do it. It's just like it makes it instantly cheap to me.
Yeah,
watching dubbed stuff, hate it.
We'll come on to some fun dubbing later in the video store corner section.
Ooh. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, I powered through that. I'll tell you what I have been watching as well. A friend of mine who's absolutely obsessed with this got me into it. I think I'd seen like 3 or 4 episodes, like back when I lived in the UK about 4 or 5 years ago, and never really got into it, and maybe I wasn't paying attention to it, but I'm now obsessed with It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
Okay.
With Charlie Day, Rob McElhenney, Danny DeVito. just started from the beginning. It goes way back to 2005 until the most recent season 15, which is just being released. What I love about it, it's R-rated. It's absolutely morally bankrupt in every way. It's a lot like Curb Your Enthusiasm, but darker, where you're kind of watching a lot of improvisation and scenes and things like that. And you're seeing more of the protagonist's personality on the screen than characters that have been created. Do you know what I mean? It feels like these are extensions of, they're magnifications of specific character types in this, and it's awesome. Plus, Danny DeVito's in it, so you got to watch it. But
it's got to be watched.
Yeah, I've powered through. I'm on season 5 now, and it's just like that 20-minute comedy that I'm just dipping into constantly now. I just absolutely love it. In the US, if you haven't watched It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, you can watch that on Hulu here in the US. And Phil, I think you said it's on Netflix over there in the UK.
Yes, I believe it is on Netflix. Yeah.
So definitely check that out. If you like things a little darker, a little harder, and as morally bankrupt as I am, I would suggest you go and watch it. All right, let's jump into the news. So I think just before maybe we go into any more detail in kind of recent movie and film news, I wanted to just firstly say a huge thank you to all of our listeners who subscribed and dialed into our James Bond No Time to Die special episode that came out a couple of weeks ago. You actually made it our most popular episode to date. It racked up more listens in the first week than any other episode in our 34 episode run. So thank you so much for that. We appreciate it. If you haven't listened to it already, you can download it now on all podcast players to hear what Phil and I, along with film journo Sean Chrysanthou and our Bond Uber fan Jason Kim, all thought about the new movie in spoilerific detail, as well as an official Movie Mouth Bond ranking of the movies, actors, and some fun top 5 lists that we put together. We will also have more spoiler specials, fun specials coming to you that will focus on specific movies. So continue to use your Movie Mouth subscription. All those subscribers that are out there are going to get that directly downloaded onto your podcast player app of choice. We'll keep you updated on that one, won't we, Philip?
We shall indeed.
All right. Do you want to get us hit off with some news? Let's do it. What you got for me? You got some news about my future wife, haven't you?
I have, yeah. Gal Gadot.
Oh, what's
Gadot,
she saying?
however you want to say it.
What's
how would you
my
say
future wife saying? I say Gal Gadot, but only because she's Israeli, and I worked with a lot of Israelis in the past, and they pronounced it Gadot. So I thought I'll just say Gadot.
Probably no.
But I think you should say Gadot because you always get the names wrong, and it suits you.
I do,
so.
Yeah, I know. So
Michael J. Fucks.
Michael J. Fucks. Yeah. Anyway. She is. It's been announced that she is in final negotiations to play the evil queen in Disney's live action adaptation of the Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. It's exciting, isn't it? So I think it's so obviously she's going to be the main villain. And as I said, she's in final negotiations to do it. But it's going to be directed by Mark Webb, who did The Amazing Spider-Man and 500 Days of Summer, and produced by Mark Platt from La La Land and The Trial of the Chicago 7, a Movie Mouth favorite. And yeah, you've got people in it sort of like Rachel Zegler from Shazam and Fury of the Gods, West Side Story, and she's going to play Snow White herself. And I believe that production is due to start sometime next year. That's quite exciting. That'll be an interesting one to see on the sort of list of live action Disney stuff that they're doing.
Yeah. There's been a lot, haven't there? There's been a lot of these live action Disney remakes, movies, and so on. I know they're making Little Mermaid at the moment.
Right.
And a few others. It's funny, actually. I subscribed to a casting call email for extras. I was an extra in a few things a few years back. And they emailed me the other day asking for a body double for a upcoming Disney movie being filmed in London. So I wonder if it's that. Yeah,
maybe. Yeah.
I don't know what kind of schlubby 5'11" British guy they're going to have starring in it. but
yeah. I mean, I could definitely play like, I don't know, like Grumpy or Dopey or something.
Yeah, you'd definitely be one of the dwarves. But that's not it. You could play all of them. I'd have you play all of them.
All the dwarves. Oh, that'd be amazing, wouldn't it? Like the guy in the Willy Wonka, the Tim Burton Willy Wonka.
Exactly.
Yeah,
The Oompa Loompa
I could
guy.
do all of them, just dressed in a different prosthetic.
Yeah. Are you only good at
Could do that.
whistling? Are you only good at singing hi ho, hi ho?
Yeah, I sing it daily when I'm on my way to work.
Are you walking along the road with an axe over your shoulder, like a pickaxe?
Yeah, I've got one of those. It's on. I've got it right now.
And one of those weird gnome hats that they wear.
Yeah, I wear that to bed.
It'd suit you perfectly, actually. I think it would suit you.
Yeah.
perfectly.
I agree.
Anyway.
I'll do that. I'll do it for free as well.
So, Disney, if you're listening, Phil would like to star in Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs, not Sleeping Beauty.
But I'll only do it if I can be all 7.
But he'll only do it if he can be all 7. And
Imagine
I'll
that
be
in
the
the
body
credits.
double of anyone you want, except Phil, because he's a dwarf.
Yeah. Well, there we
There
are.
you go. Well, thanks for that, Phil.
all right.
Oh, hang on. What's that? It sounds like a klaxon in reverse. Oh, no, it's just the Christopher Nolan news klaxon. Yes, this is the news that Christopher Nolan, who is directing the upcoming biopic Oppenheimer about the inventor of the atomic bomb, starring Cillian Murphy in the role of Oppenheimer himself, has just cast Emily Blunt into the film alongside Matt Damon, erstwhile Interstellar connection there with Christopher Nolan, and Robert Downey Jr.
Oh,
So
that's a
very exciting. Yes, super exciting cast. And also great to see Cillian Murphy get a starring role in a Nolan film, considering I think he's been in almost every one to date. So great to see him in there. And I would love to see a little Michael Caine cameo, even though I think he said he's pretty much retired from acting now. But yeah.
Yeah.
The first part, that's called splitting the atom. The second part, that's called the bomb.
the bomb goes, you're only supposed to blow the bloody doors off, not the actual, the world.
Yeah, not Hiroshima. The third part, that's called the mushroom cloud. So we will see whether when that movie comes out, it's looking like that's scheduled for July 2023 release at present, but obviously pandemic provided, we shall hope it will be released on time. We've got a lot of reviews to get into this week, so do you want to jump into the trailers before we do that?
We shall. Yes, let's do that. Let's not break convention, Miles. Can't handle it.
Okay, well, all I want to know is, Phil, are any celestial bodies about to fall down onto the planet at any point?
Well, it's funny you mentioned that, because yes, they are.
Oh.
According to Roland Emmerich,
Say no more. Say no more.
The doomsayer of us all. He's back with another disaster film, which I'm not going to complain. I loved it. You know me, and I think you do too. We both love disaster films, even if they're rubbish.
I mean, Independence Day is my favorite disaster movie of all time. Bar none.
Yeah, well, it's amazing. Yeah. But yeah, so he is back to direct Moonfall, which comes out in February 22. And it's starring Donald Sutherland, Halle Berry, Patrick Wilson, and John Bradley, among others.
John Bradley of Sam, what's his name? Sam from Game of Thrones.
Yes. Playing what looks to be the same character, but in the modern age.
Sam, get up there and stop the fucking moon from falling down.
That's me and you, isn't it? You're Jon Snow and I'm Sam.
Without doubt. I've come back from the dead on more than one occasion. Spoiler alert!
And I've saved your bacon on more than one occasion.
So you absolutely have. Now get in that fucking library and read some books, will you?
Anyway, in Moonfall, this is great. A mysterious force knocks the moon from its orbit around Earth and sends it hurtling on a collision course with life as we know it.
Oh, God.
With mere weeks before impact and the world on the brink of annihilation, NASA executive and former astronaut Jo Fowler is convinced she has the key to saving us all. But only one astronaut from her past, Brian Harper, and a conspiracy theorist, Casey Houseman, believe her.
How many astronauts from her past are there? That's what I want to know. I haven't got many astronauts from my past.
Well, if you were an astronaut, then... Oh, no. Yeah, if you were an astronaut, you probably know more astronauts, wouldn't you?
Do you think at any point Halle Berry looks at the camera and says, I'm just a little anxious to get up there and whoop the man in the moon's ass, that's all?
Probably. I mean, this film, it does look typical Roland Emmerich. It just looks mental. It looks insane. But
Who do you think is
like,
going to be playing the president in this film?
Oh,
it's got to have the president in it, hasn't it?
On that, can't we? Yeah.
Yeah. If it's a Roland Emmerich movie and the world is going to end, then it has to have the president of the United States in it. Not of any other country, by the way, just the president of the United States.
I mean, if it wasn't for the fact that I've seen the trailer and I know he doesn't play the president, I think Donald Sutherland would have actually been a good.
He would have been, wouldn't he? He would have been. He's not. Wow.
No. But yeah, it looks insane. It looks like the visuals are going to be awesome. You know, special effects coming out your ears, and probably going to be terrible. Oh, oh no, I've set him off. No, no Pacino.
We got special effects coming out of our ears.
Every week. Every week. He's got like Pacino Tourette's.
Pachirettes.
Yeah, it's going to be terrible, but I'm going to love it. I know I am.
I think you're going to love it too.
So that's Moonfall.
In 2014, the moon will come to us. That's the
Feb 22.
The moon comes to us.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Yep.
What else you got for us? You watched
Well, yeah, just so the Star Wars universe comes back.
Keep talking while I'm doing it.
With the Book of Boba Fett. Yeah, so this looks. I'm very excited about this because they advertised this at they sort of led up to this at the end of the second series of Mandalorian, didn't they?
Yeah.
And yeah, so the Book of Boba Fett, which coming out on Disney Plus, of course, on December the 29th. Looks really good. Going to be telling the backstory of Mr. Fett himself, Mr. Bobby Boba.
Bobby Fetta. Bobby Fetta.
Bobby Fetta.
My great cousin.
And yeah, I can't wait. It looks really good. Okay. It's going to be cool to see sort of more of like, it looks like the underworld of the Star Wars galaxy. It's like, it looks like it's going to be sort of The Sopranos meets Star Wars.
Yeah.
I like it.
The sly snootles, if you will.
Yeah. And maybe we'll see Jabba the Hutt. Who knows?
Yuzum Jabba Wanga. Yuzum Jabba no Bata.
Solo. Yeah.
Yuzum Jabba no Bata. Yuzum Jabba Wanga. You want a Wanga?
Yeah, I'm really excited. Are you? You've seen the trailer for this?
I'm going to say I'm not that excited, which is weird. I've seen the trailer. I enjoyed the trailer, but I'm going to say I'm not that excited just because, like, I don't know. I didn't love his character in The Mandalorian. I'm totally in love with The Mandalorian. Like, I'm head over heels in love with The Mandalorian. I'm just going to go out there and say it right now. I'm like,
yeah.
I'm not saying that I do inappropriate things while wearing a Mandalorian helmet. I'm just going to say that maybe I do them on Tuesdays between 6 and 7 p.m. while I'm alone. Other than that, what are we talking about? Book of Boba Fett.
Yeah.
But other than that, Book of Boba Fett, it's yet to be seen for me. I didn't love the chemistry between him and the other characters, and I'm not sure he's a particularly great actor, but I mean he's going to have a helmet on for the whole thing, so hopefully, we'll see. I'm not that bothered about the underworld of Tatooine, to be honest, unless Pizza the Hutt himself rolls up in a stretch limousine.
He will definitely a stretch land speeder.
That one's far. Stretch land speeder.
I'm looking forward to it.
When's this one out, Phil?
December the 29th.
Okay. Merry Christmas and happy holidays to all of our listeners for that. That sounds awesome. All right. I was going to quickly just walk through one movie that I saw the trailer for recently, which is The King's Man, which is Matthew Vaughan's latest installment of the Kingsman spy movies, British spy movies.
Yes.
It looks interesting. It's a prequel to The Kingsman. Both films starring Taron Egerton, of course. I don't know if there's much buzz for this. I don't know whether people really are excited about it.
Yeah, I don't know. I enjoyed the other two. I really liked them.
Yeah, the second one, not so much. But take me home, country roads. But I mean, this just looks a little, I don't know, forced, maybe. I feel like it's kind of being forced on us a little bit. The trailer has a lot of loud noises, At the end of it, it's like coming soon, December 22, bang, bang, bang. And it's like, I'm not sure whether I'm excited for this or whether this loud noise is just making me excited, which happens a lot. Yeah, well, they've just scared me into it. But it's got an interesting cast. Gemma Arterton's in there. You've got Ralph Fiennes in there. Rhys Ifans is in there as Rasputin. That's quite interesting.
Yeah.
It's set during World War, like kind of a World War One period, which is interesting. It's kind of a prequel movie to the obviously the other two movies. Yet to be seen whether Elton John will turn up in this film. Rocket Man, darling, it's Rocket Man. Fuck off. But we'll see.
That's all he does. He just absolutely fucks off.
Pretty much all he does. But yeah, so The King's Man will be out on December 22nd in cinemas and movie theaters worldwide. Phil, I think we should jump into the reviews. What do you think?
Let's do it, Pat.
Let's do it. Okay. Do you mind if I get things kicked off?
No, you go for it. You got a busy review schedule, haven't you?
I went to the cinema 5 times in between episodes, so I'm a little bit shell shocked, shall we say?
Yeah.
But we are going to fly through the reviews this week, guys. The content itself, I'm going to try and keep as short as possible, brief as possible. But as always, it will be spoiler free. So if you haven't seen any of these films, please don't worry. We're not going to spoil them in any kind of capacity. We're just going to talk about whether we thought they were good or not. All right. Let me begin. Marvel's Eternals. So another day, another Marvel release.
Yawn.
Yeah, well, you're not as big into these as I am. I'm super into
only because I can't catch up. I'm literally drowning in a sea of Marvel that I can't ever escape from.
There are worse things to drown in, I would say.
Yeah,
just wait till you get to Ant-Man and the Wasp. Oh, Jesus. Anyway, rather than complaining, I think we should be celebrating, Phil. And even if Black Widow and Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings were fun, but fell into the trap of rather formulaic. Disney Plus's new Marvel series Falcon and the Winter Soldier, although punchy, was rather convoluted and offered a diluted and mixed up message on race and equality, which should really have hit harder than it did. It's only really been recently for me when Marvel has drifted more towards the avant-garde away from their formula that it's really landed a punch. I don't think you've seen either of these, Phil, but both WandaVision's sitcom twisting brain bender and Loki's stylish and heartfelt seasons on Disney Plus were an absolute home run for me. They were awesome because they did something different, and I love them both. I'm actually rewatching Loki at the moment. But is different always better? Marvel seem to think so, harking back to their initial A-Team releases of Iron Man, Captain America, Thor, and the first Avengers movie or Avengers Assemble if you're in the UK. Those were given for bold directors, different tones and voices, different filming styles, and that really extended into the home run of James Gunn, who was brought on to direct the rather unknown Guardians of the Galaxy. No one had really heard of any of those, outside the comic book world, any of those superheroes before that film. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 1 really was, kind of a break from the norm, and it went off into a more comedic direction. Since those days, we've been obviously hit with quote unquote hit after hit. However, many of those have been cliched and formulaic reruns in the recent releases. And we haven't really seen many clear voices due to the sequelized nature of those releases. A lot of the same directors coming back to direct, for example, the kind of further installments of those heroes. So here we find the Eternals, who are a group of 10 protectors, ageless keepers of the peace, sent to defend Earth from the Deviants, a race of giant shape-shifting beasts. The Eternals have been around for millennia. They've basically been watching over the human race, nudging us along. They were here. They came to Babylon, for example, and they were basically giving us, tidbits of information that helped us to create the plow, for example, to evolve our process of farming and so on. Bear with me, guys. Right. This is a Marvel movie. I swear to God, I'm going to come on to it. The Eternals each have their own superpowers. There's 10 of them in total. It goes everywhere from Salma Hayek, who stars as the leader, Ajak, who's kind of spiritual and in contact with the kind of main. I will say, I'm not going to say too much, but the main celestial being that kind of governs the Eternals. Physically, the most powerful Eternal is the Superman-like Icarus, who's played by Rob Stark himself, Richard Madden, who has the ability to fly and shoot powerful laser beams from his freaking eyeballs. There's Thena, played by Angelina Jolie, who's able to conjure weapons out of thin air. Kingo, by comedian Kumail Nanjiani, who can shoot Street Fighter-like fireballs from his hands. Gilgamesh, played by Korean actor Don Lee, who possesses super strength, as well as a close bond with Jolie's Thena. There's also Druig, played by the excellent Irish actor Barry Keoghan, who can possess humans with his mind. Makari, played by Lauren Ridloff, who has super speed. I'm still going. Fastos, played by Brian Tyree Henry, a genius tech expert and inventor. Sprite, played by Leah McHugh, who can project illusions and fool people into believing that they're real. And Cersei, played by Gemma Chan, who can turn inanimate objects into whatever she wants, such as a speeding double-decker bus in London into a bunch of red petals. And she actually, Gemma Chan, kind of forms the heart center of this movie, the more emotional center of this movie. I would say she's probably the lead of this film, believe it or not, with all of that acting talent there. And the movie's probably, I would say, better for it. So there's a lot going on and not a great amount of runtime or podcast time to go into all that detail. But all I will say is that Marvel mastermind and studio head Kevin Feige, obviously sensing success, as he always does, decided to land director Chloe Zhao, pre-Oscar winning, prior to her proto-docudrama Nomadland picking up absolutely everything at the most recent Academy Awards, if you remember. Zhao, who is known for her documentary-like, low-light, happy hour-induced productions, tends to focus on moments of real-world emotional crisis and campfire-side conversations between actors and actual real people in her films who are posing as performers. So, to the important question first, Phil, that I know you want to know the answer to. Does anyone shit in a bucket during the runtime of this film?
I'm going to say yes.
Sadly, the answer is no on this occasion. But if you do want to see that, we recommend you go back and check out Frances McDormand's performance in Zhao's Oscar smash Nomadland, because that's exactly what she does. What this does have, however, is the stunning vistas and scenery you've come to expect from Zhao, as well as the low light and playful character interplay that you've come to expect from her other features. However, this isn't just Magic Hour, the movie. What it does so well is it somehow manages to cram those 10 brand new heroes that I just talked about into a 2-hour movie and actually give them character arcs, humor, pathos, emotion, the likes of which another big sci-fi movie that we're going to talk about this week doesn't do, in my mind. And we'll come on to that. I'd heard a lot of conjecture and sweet and sour opinions on this movie. What with it at the time of this episode currently sitting at a 50% rotten score on Rotten Tomatoes critic reviews.
Really?
There's also been a large swathe of intolerant individuals deciding to vote it down on IMDb due to its inclusivity focus on casting and being the first Marvel movie to, in my opinion, belatedly feature a character which finally showcases individuals of LGBTQ in the Marvel universe. This film is currently banned from Qatar and Saudi Arabia for this reason, with Disney refusing to cut certain scenes. Hopefully, our listeners know me as someone who makes up his own mind, and although you could easily disparage this movie as woke casting, quote unquote, something we are seeing as extremely important these days, but sometimes can be used rather cynically by studio heads. Eternals cast is made up of people with different races, people who are hard of hearing, LGBTQ characters, females in lead roles, heaven forbid. And seriously, if you have a problem with that, you should, number one, unsubscribe from our podcast, and two, take a long, hard look at yourself as to why you feel so insecure when faced with people who are different to you. Okay, so can we move on and focus on whether the movie is good now? Thank you, Phil. I heard your indeed. I went into this movie with very low expectations. I was not overly familiar with the characters despite being a comic book reader for 30 years. Nor was I that enthralled by the idea of an indie filmmaker such as Chloe Zhao directing an installment of such a beloved to me series of movies. And with that, I can say I was wrong. Eternals treads the same darker path as some of DC's recent output, movies, which I am really not a fan of at all. However, instead of it toiling in the darkness, it's there on the edge of sunset, bathed in a warm glow, both literally and characteristically. And it made me do something I hadn't in every Marvel movie since Avengers Endgame. Feel. Eternals gets a recommendation from the Movie Mouth podcast and is available in cinemas worldwide right now. Go check it out. Let me know what you think.
Ooh. Interesting.
Can't really say much more about it. All I can say is that it's a great film in terms of pacing, in terms of character, excellent performances across the board by, I would say, the entire cast, which is unusual for these kind of movies. Sometimes you get someone you think, they don't quite fit. Everybody fits. Chloe Zhao gets great performance out of everyone. Handheld camera shots, probably the best looking Marvel movie you've ever seen. And also doesn't have the same kind of ending to a Marvel movie that you've been used to. There are twists and turns along the way. I recommend it. It's trying to do something different, and we really need that.
Brilliant.
So you've got a few more to watch, Phil, before you get to that one.
Yep. It's top of the pile now, isn't it?
It really is. The ever-growing pile.
Climbing the ladder. It does sound good. And I've seen, I saw the trailers. I've read the reviews. It does look interesting. I do joke about sort of Marvel pumping out a film every 6 days or whatever it is, but there's some really good, interesting stuff coming out from them that I do want to see. One day I will.
I'll see it one day.
I'll see it one day. If not, I'll just get you to tell me about it or listen to the podcast.
Just listen to the podcast. Do you want to talk us through Dune?
Let's talk about Dune.
Would you say this was your most anticipated film of the year?
No, because Ghostbusters is coming out this month.
That's so true. I think it was my most anticipated film of last year, but it got moved. For me, this was my most anticipated film of the year for sure. Dune.
Okay. Well, I'll go into it and we can have a chat about it. So, yes, this is the very eagerly awaited and much delayed sci-fi epic. And now I'm going to get it straight out of the way and admit that I've not read the book, the 1965 novel by Frank Herbert, on which this is based, nor have I seen the 1981 film of the same name, starring Carl McLachlan and Sting.
David Lynch.
And Patrick Stewart, I think, as well. And I'm pretty sure I've not seen it. Yeah.
He plays the sandworm, I believe. I've seen everything. It just pops out. I've seen everything.
I've seen everything. So therefore, I am coming into this as a complete Dune noob. So from what I understand, Dune is one hell of a book, and director Denis Villeneuve thought that it would be a bit of a crime to cram all of it into a single film. So Warner Brothers, however, much like the two-part film It from 2017, they only gave production contracts for the first film. So relying on the success of it, or no, maybe the possible success of it, before a second film would be greenlit. So part one, as we have here, covers roughly half of the novel. So don't come into this expecting the story to be wrapped up in a neat little package, because you'll probably be a bit disappointed. So Dune takes place many, many millennia into the future, where humanity lives in a galactic empire that barely remembers Earth. Everyone has force fields that are impervious to fast-moving projectiles, so they have to fight with swords instead of guns, and spaceships can travel faster than the speed of light. So it's all very interesting. There's lots of stuff going on, but I like how, well, I'm particularly a fan of the force field thing, because it, puts people, even though it's that far in the future, where you'd expect laser guns to be out there and everything, and weapons that could annihilate you in seconds. No, they have to get good old swords out and hack each other to death. So we follow the story of Paul Atreides, played by Timothée Chalamet, who is about to have his life changed when his father, Duke Leto Atreides, Oscar Isaac, accepts control of desert planet Arrakis. And Arrakis is the source of spice, which is the most valuable substance in the universe for its life-enhancing properties. But Leto knows the new assignment is a trap set by his enemies. So, in essence, that's quite a weighty responsibility when there's already conflict between the Fremen, natives of the planet, alongside the spice mining, and not to mention some big bastard giant deadly sandworms which threaten everyone. Critter.
Holy space jargon.
Tremors. Sorry, not critter. Tremors style.
Grabbers! We got graboids!
So we are also introduced to the enemies of the Atreides family, including the freaky-looking Baron Harkonnen, played by Stellan Skarsgård, and the Bene Gesserit religious sect, who have a key role in Paul's ultimate destiny. So in essence, there is a lot of backstory and new information to be told to the Dune newcomer like me.
People that struggle to tell the Gom Jabars from their Bene Gesserits, would you say?
Exactly that. But I think they did a very good job at explaining, a very diverse sort of made up galaxy with a lot of its own history, sort of Lord of the Rings style. So I think they've done a good job of that.
So much detail.
Loads of detail. It's a long run time. It's 2 hours 40 minutes long, but I didn't feel that it dragged at all. It's not an all out action film by a long stretch. There's a lot of slow moments in it, a lot of development and things like that, but it really didn't drag for me. I must have been in the right frame of mind and just really enjoying it. And I think this is helped massively by something that hit me immediately, and that is just how stunningly beautiful the visuals are in this film. So for a sci-fi fan, or anyone really for that matter, anyone who likes film, it is an absolute treat for the eyes, this film. The locations, the sets, the vehicles, the visual effects, the costumes, and the pure scale of it just look amazing.
Yeah.
Like everything looks crisp and everything looks so good and so of the world that it's meant to be set in. Not only for the eyes, it's not only a treat for the eyes, but your ears are in for a right old treat as well. Because what do we get? But we get a lovely, very dramatic, very good Hans Zimmer soundtrack as well.
Yes, we do.
And
he invented instruments for that for that soundtrack. He actually went to the Utah desert or Nevada desert in the US, and he sat out in the desert for 2 weeks and came up and listened to the sound of the desert.
Bloody hell.
Listening to the sound of the desert, trying to understand the noises of the desert. I don't know where he's from Wales, but I'm listening to the sound of the desert. See, creating new instruments. But he created new instruments, I think, and like string instruments and that kind of thing. Yeah, it's
That's
pretty
really
intense.
cool, and it's a great soundtrack. And you could, in that Hans Zimmer way, you could sort of tell. I was like listening to it, thinking, "This is Hans Zimmer, sure of it." But it suits, but it's not like it's like other stuff he's done. It just suits the film so well.
There's a lot of
that style. There's a lot of ominous sort of noises and big noises, and
there's also space. Can we talk about the space bagpipes as well?
The space pipes. Yeah, I forgot about those. Yeah. Well, anyway, let me continue. So a really good Hans Zimmer soundtrack as well. Looks absolutely amazing. Really goes all out to sort of put you into the Dune world. Performance wise, I think Charlemagne in the lead was fantastic, but to be honest, I thought the whole casting was really good. Nothing to complain about. So yes, it's epic for sure. And now I do sort of wish that I read the book before seeing this. I've read since before I was born to do that, so that's my fault really. Because this is the kind of film that I think, reading up about this, it's sort of, there's a lot of people that are massive fans of the books, comparing it to the books. But I think this would be quite a fun one to do that with, because it's quite good to compare books like that to films. Yeah. But I can't tell you how it stacks up against the book because I have not read the book, so it'd be interesting to know. But from what I hear, it's a mixed bag of some very good things and some not. So it's long. And I guess complicated to the newcomer like me, but as I said, it's well explained. But with the film looking and sounding as good as it does, I don't really care how complicated it is in its massive recommendation from me. What did you think? You liked it, right?
Couldn't agree more. Definitely a recommendation. I actually, it's funny on the subject of reading the book. I actually had read some of the book and kind of lost patience with it. And then on the way back from Hawaii recently, I did the audiobook. I downloaded the audiobook and probably drank a few too many whiskeys and woke up, and it was still playing in my AirPods, and it was like, the Bene Gesserit and the Gom Jabars and blah, blah. And I was just, I don't know where I was. And I was like, this is going to be a struggle to get through this. And I have ADHD, so I cannot focus on anything for any considerable period of time. And I'm a good reader, but this was just a problem. But I was so excited for this film. And I have to say, when I left the theater, I didn't really know what to feel. I felt like I'd woken up from a kind of fever dream. When you're in a really deep sleep and you have one of those weird dreams and you wake up and you don't know what's real and what's not. I felt a bit like that. And maybe it was my fault for seeing it on the IMAX screen and without really having read the book, because I saw it the opening night and it looked amazing and it sounds amazing. And I was so blown away by the visuals and the sound that the story kind of became secondary to me. I think what this film, there are two failings of this film that I don't think are particularly this film's fault. The first one, I think, is there's no real empathy or emotion for any of the characters. I don't think you really feel anything when certain people are taken off the board, shall we say. Yeah. And I think that is maybe more of a failing of the writing, or maybe it's part of the writing in that's how it's on the page. And in that case, I'm an idiot, but when I go to the movies, I want to feel something when someone that I actually like in the film is killed off or does something good and is rewarded. And that for me doesn't really happen in this. It's almost like the characters, the plot is just a road to get the visuals where the movie needs to go. I think the other issue with it is, again, not its fault, is the fact that you've got a movie that was basically the basis for every sci-fi movie that you and I have ever loved. Star Wars, even all the way through to The Matrix, with terminology and mythicism around the one or a savior and all this kind of thing. And obviously they're all influenced by Frank Herbert, they're all influenced by Dune. But the problem is we've seen that all before. But that, again, it isn't a problem of this movie. It's a problem of where I think this movie comes from and how long it's taken to get it to this point. And let's face it, when you look at this film as what it is, which is art, it is extraordinary. Denis Villeneuve, as you say, he's obviously directed some of my favorite movies, Arrival, Sicario, and so many more. Even Enemy with Jake Gyllenhaal, I loved.
And Blade Runner 2049.
Blade Runner 2049. It's just there's so many.
Again, visually looked great as well. He's definitely got his head screwed on when it comes to visuals and
couldn't agree more. Greg Fraser, actually, of Rogue One and The Mandalorian, was the director of photography on this.
Yes,
who I think was an incredible choice. There's that scene on the beach with Timothée Chalamet when he's walking on the beach, and you see like the ships kind of flying behind him, and it was a lot like that opening scene of Rogue One, if you remember, where they're in Iceland or somewhere, and you see that shuttle come down and follow them along the beach. Just thought it was fantastic from that point of view. I think the great news here is that this movie, and again we can't talk about too much where it ends, but it does end, as Phil said, halfway through the book, and so it's somewhat of a cliffhanger. It's kind of anticlimactic to some extent. Yeah. But it kind of cuts off at a point where, more is to come. And I think, having spoken to, one of our good friends, Gavin, reached out to me on Instagram, talking about it. And he loves the book. It's like his Bible, basically. And he just said, this great setup, perfect setup, perfect adaptation of part one. Part two is where it's at. I can't wait. It's probably going to be one of my top 10 films of all time. Yeah. So, you take from that what you will. But yeah, Denis Villeneuve signed on to direct part two now. Warner Brothers have confirmed and greenlit that. And also he's in talks to direct a third movie, Dune Messiah, based on the follow-up book from that, also for Warner Brothers. Obviously, there are a few more Dune books after that, written by Frank Herbert, and then I believe by his son. But I think they're going to kind of hold off on some of those because they get slightly more avant-garde and surreal and psychedelic as the kind of series goes on. So I think they're going to try and keep it to like 2, 3, 4 movies.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you haven't seen Dune already, go see it. It's in theaters right now. You can see it on HBO Max here in the US, but if you do that, are you really a cinema goer? Are you really a film fan? You should go and see it on a big screen if you have the choice. It's not always easy for some people with the pandemic and with work and things like that, but highly recommend seeing it on a big screen. I've seen it twice now. I will say second time made way more sense than the first time. Go see it. Watch it.
Cool.
All right. Should we talk about some more movies?
Let's do it.
All right. Let's go. Let's take a stroll into Soho, shall we? Ooh. This is legendary UK director of Spaced, Hot Fuzz, and Shaun of the Dead, Edgar Wright, returning to direct Last Night in Soho, a straight-up chiller thriller that is more in common with late 70s hammer horror than any of his output to date. So this follows sweet-natured 1960s obsessed Eloise, played by Thomasin McKenzie, whose dreams come true when she's accepted into fashion school in the bustling heart of London's West End. But her big city life is proven to be a rude awakening as a small town girl when her student halls become rather toxic and a little bit too much for her. And she decides to take up a room in a bedsit of the matriarchal Miss Collins, who's played by Diana Rigg, the famous Diana Rigg, in her final film role before she passed away, sadly, earlier this year. That night in her new bed, Eloise finds herself inexplicably transported back to 1966 and into the body of an ambitious young singer named Sandy, played by Anya Taylor-Joy, who you will remember we've discussed very recently in the chess show, which is escaping my mind, Phil.
The Queen's Gambit.
The Queen's Gambit, thank you very much. And just as things start to she gets kind of used to going out and clubbing in 1960s London, Eloise slowly starts to kind of unravel into a kind of thriller, horror, nightmare-scape. And this kind of focuses on, I would say, the treatment of women in the entertainment industry, treatment of women in general, I would say. Also, mental health issues it delves into. It's not your standard Edgar Wright film, as you may have come to expect. It features knockout performances from all of those actors that I mentioned. Matt Smith is in this as well as a kind of sleazy music industry executive. And it also has really nice support from some British acting legends, as you would expect from an Edgar Wright movie, with obviously Diana Rigg, Rita Toshingan, and Terence Stamp is in this as well, in a great little role. I think the less I say about the film, the better, due to the twist-based nature of the plot line. But what I will say is that it looks magnificent, has a great swinging 60s-based soundtrack. Soundtrack I've been listening to pretty much non-stop since I saw it. And a score from British Oscar winner Stephen Price, who does some great work on this one, as he has for some other Edgar Wright movies. And of course, Gravity, you'll know him from. It still features those extreme close-up sound effect transitional shots that you see in a lot of those Edgar Wright movies. You know,
yeah.
For example, they're usually used to comedy effect when you see a pint glass being filled up in ultra close-up and then slammed down on a table, and then someone takes a big sip of it. You know, Edgar Wright,
like a big
Simon
swoosh
Pegg,
noise going on, like
a big swoosh noise. Exactly. You know exactly what I'm talking about. Instead, here, think rapidly zooming close-up of a toilet stall lock, which loudly clunks to occupied from available with the clickety clack you would expect, all that kind of stuff. It's all in here, but instead of it being played for comic effect, it's now played for horror effect, and it actually works really well.
Interesting.
But all observations aside, I can say that Last Night in Soho is an intense thriller. It's filled with dark imagery and has an undercurrent of mental health conversations, which should be had in cinema at the moment, while presenting an almost alternate London, featuring a total against type London black cab driver being threatening to one of its passengers rather than, telling you all about their life or asking about your recent holiday trip or whatever it might be. Central London flies by, been anywhere nice this year, love, have you? None of that. It's a hard, scary London in this, but it's shot really well. I've seen 5 films in theaters over the last 10 days, and I can say that only this film really gripped me to the point of forgetting about the real world. It's kind of like a roller coaster, except in this case, the ride goes on just long enough to offer a satisfying conclusion. And I can't say much more than that. So, all in, let's order a pint of numbers and raise a toast to Mr. Wright. Last Night in Soho gets a high recommendation from the Movie Mouth podcast and is available in theaters worldwide now. So go and see it because it's brilliant and really surprising. And I'm pointing at Phil as well.
He is.
I'm also
threateningly, like a London taxi cab driver. He's pointing at me. Yeah, no, I can't wait to see this. I'm really excited. Love Edgar Wright. Loved everything he's ever done. So yes, very much looking forward to this because it'd be interesting to see something different, like you've said.
Needs to be seen. And like, I saw it in a cinema in here in New York, and the audience seemed to enjoy it. There were quite a few English jokes and references in there that I was kind of cracking up, and the person that I was with was like, what's so funny?
What are they on about?
Yeah, this guy said that he's from South London and he'd never been to North London before. That's the way it is. It's that kind of thing. It's a joke. But yeah, for that reason, it's definitely worth seeing as well. But absolutely loved it. Brilliant. All right, I'm going to jump into 2 mini reviews now, just to close out our review section. Let's go Last Duel first. So we'll go Last Duel. So this is Ridley Scott's movie, which centers on the last ever death by combat execution, shall we say, in France. This movie is directed by Ridley Scott, who is this year 83 years old.
What?
83 years old.
No.
He's going back to his broad medieval or historical canvas, just like we've seen with Kingdom of Heaven or, of course, Gladiator. He's also currently about to release the Gucci movie, which is coming out with Lady Gaga and also Adam Driver.
Yeah.
And he's currently working on Gladiator 2 with Russell Crowe.
Really? I did not know about that.
Yes. So he has a full slate right now.
Wow.
He's released 2 films this year, which is just incredible for an 83-year-old.
Hurry up.
Yeah. Don't let him hear you say that, because he'll probably beat the living shit out of you. Ridley Scott's quite a formidable man.
Yeah, I hear.
So this movie it's quite a strange storyline in that it's so firstly, I think what we should say, it's the first film since Good Will Hunting to be written by Matt Damon and Ben Affleck. Believe it or not.
Yeah.
Obviously they won the Oscar for Good Will Hunting when it came out in 90. I think the Oscars they won in 97, I want to say, 98. But in any case, they hadn't written a movie together since then. So that's quite interesting. They're also joined by Nicole Holofcener, who also wrote an element of the screenplay. So, Phil, what I would say is the really interesting part of this is that it centers on the same story told from 3 different perspectives. Okay. So you have Matt Damon as Sir Jean de Carouge, who is basically a soldier fighting for the King of France. And he marries a woman played by Jodie Comer, Marguerite de Carouge, and she is sexually assaulted, or so we're led to believe, by Adam Driver's Jacques Legris.
Yeah.
And Sir Jean de Carouge, Matt Damon, and Adam Driver end up challenging each other to a duel to the death after all of this, kind of these scenes that have happened. But what they do is they split this movie up into 3 chapters. The first chapter is told from Matt Damon's point of view. The second chapter is told from Adam Driver's point of view. And then the third chapter is told from Jodie Comer's point of view. So you see the same scenes, albeit with slightly nuanced changes in the performances that will showcase the central performers' beliefs that this crime that happened was driven by them or whatever.
Interesting.
It is interesting. It's also got a really nice support from Ben Affleck in this, who appears to be in a completely different movie. But he turns up as the Lord Duke Pierre, who basically Adam Driver works for, and he is the most camp, over the top, orgy having, blonde hair with a bleach blonde soul patch.
It's an amazing soul patch.
Medieval character, yeah. And we should say, by the way, Matt Damon gives good mullet in this movie. Matt Damon
crazy
gives good
medieval mullet.
Very crazy, very medieval. But, all jokes aside, this does center on a very, very horrific crime, the likes of which we actually have to endure twice because it's told from two different people's point of view. So if anyone is kind of a little bit, unsure about seeing that kind of thing, then I would not recommend seeing this film. However, I would say that I did quite enjoy it. It played out pretty well. The duel itself that takes place is also really engaging and fun and brutal, and is definitely, in terms of scale and scope, is definitely up there with other Ridley Scott movies. Be a great Sunday night film. If you're going to go to the cinema or you're sitting at home and you want to watch something that's more historical in nature and a little deeper in nature to take your mind off those Sunday scaries. So all in all, I would say The Last Duel gets a recommendation, albeit it's on the borderline there, for telling the same story 3 times and maybe not doing too much different with those 3 different stories. But nonetheless, maybe it'll be better on the second watch. It gets a recommendation from the Movie Mouth podcast. So that was The Last Duel. And, should we go and see another Timothée Chalamet film?
Yes.
Okay. This is Wes Anderson, one of my favorite directors, top 5 favorite directors, I would say. Wes Anderson's love letter to journalists set in an outpost of an American newspaper in a fictional 20th century French city that brings to life the collection of stories published in the French Dispatch, which is basically like a New Yorker type magazine, except it's circulated in Kansas. So it's a really strange idea. Similar to The Last Duel, this takes place over a sequence of 3 core chapters, which in this case involve different characters and different storylines. It's bookended by 2 stories that involve the editor of this magazine passing away and basically saying, "Okay, I'm passing away. I'm going to die," and he puts it in his will and says, "When I die, the magazine has to be disbanded, the typewriters have to be burned, we have to close the doors," basically. So that's how it's kind of bookended as a story. And then the 3 stories that take place are basically articles. They're articles that are being written by one of the protagonists within those 3 stories. And this has a typically batshit insane Wes Anderson cast. You've got Benicio del Toro, Adrian Brody, Tilda Swinton, Bond favorite Léa Seydoux, Frances McDormand, Timothée Chalamet, Jeffrey Wright is in there, Matthew Almeric, Steve Park, Bill Murray, Owen Wilson, Bob Balaban, even Henry Winkler turns up at some point. It's insane how many incredible actors and performers are in this. It's because it's so episodic in nature, it's a little tough to gel with it, I would say. It looks incredible. It's Wes Anderson. It's exactly what you've come to expect from a Wes Anderson movie. It looks great. It sounds great. It's written so well in whip-cracking smart dialogue and, segues about, certain meals that are made and how they're prepared and going into finite detail about all of the above.
Yeah.
Amazing. It does also, in some cases, focus into more of a black and white element in a lot of those main stories, which for me took away a lot of the story. It took away a lot of the Wes Anderson charm. I love the colors that he used. For example, Grand Budapest Hotel, if you think about that film, with the 3 different color schemes and also aspect ratios that he used in that, was just a phenomenally good-looking film. This, I think, it could be an incredible looking film. I was a little disappointed by the black and white element. Maybe that's my own fault. I don't know. Maybe I just didn't get it. I would say in the most part, this is, if you're a Wes Anderson fan, this is the same movie you've seen a dozen times over. It's a Wes Anderson movie. And what does that really mean? Well, I think when you talk about Wes Anderson, you could say that he doesn't really drift too far from his typical kind of stereotype and cliche. Yeah. The good news, however, is that it's not a bad film. It's a little like, Phil, if you imagine your favorite band. Who's your favorite band? Shawadi Wadi? Is it?
Yeah.
Shawadi Wadi?
Yeah.
No, Coldplay, sorry, is your favorite band. It's a little bit like, let's say you...
Go fuck yourself.
He's giving me the death stare. It's a little like your favorite band or singer making an almost identical album to your favorite record. So, when you release a favorite record, you go, okay, I want to hear that again. I want to hear, more of that.
Yeah.
And instead of hitting the mainstream and releasing like a wall of sound, radio pleasing stadium rock album that makes you immediately hate that band, they just stick with the same formula. And we were talking about it earlier with Marvel, and that drifting from the formula was a good thing in that case. In this case, it's kind of starting to get a little wearing, I would say, and it would be good to see maybe Wes Anderson do something a little different. Sadly, it's not in my top 5 favorite Wes Anderson films. I did enjoy it, and I can't not recommend it. I'm really struggling to kind of find a reason to say that it should not be recommended, but I did enjoy it. I would say out of all of the movies that I've seen, the 5 films that I've seen for the pod this week, probably my least favorite, which says a lot considering 3 of my favorite directors released a film this week.
Yeah.
However, go see it. If you're a Wes Anderson fan, you're going to love it. Great soundtrack, looks great cast, twee dialogue. Owen Wilson's in there on a bicycle riding around and he falls off at some point. You're going to love it.
Wow.
Wow. The French Dispatch. Go and check it out. I think I need a breather, Phil. What do you think?
You need a rest. Or review that, wouldn't you?
I think I might have a sit down. Or instead, Phil, should we be blasted off into space to become the marshals on a space station? What do you think?
I think so.
It's time for Video Store Corner. Right, do you know, I think we can add a little parenthesis here, if you don't mind, Phil, just before we get stuck in. So for our new listeners, Video Store Corner is our classic film discussion section where we like to rent a movie from the video store era and sit down to watch it, just like back in the old days, don't we, Phil? And then what we do is we discuss it in spoiler-filled detail. We release our Video Store Corner picks each week on our Instagram account, just to give you a little bit of time to watch it in anticipation of each episode. But obviously, you know, if you haven't watched this week's and you want to watch it, feel free to pause it here or when we reveal the title, and then you can come back and listen to it once you've watched it. First off, a big thank you to our subscribers who we actually put up a poll on our Instagram story where this particular movie won by a majority of 59 to 41 against Chevy Chase's Memoirs of an Invisible Man. I know that I
still want to watch that.
You're upset by that, aren't you?
I am upset.
Maybe we'll put it in for the rotation for next time.
Yeah.
But we're going to adopt this format going forward for Video Store Corner. So please follow us on our Instagram account with our handle, which is @MovieMouthPodcast. And you can become part of the show and actually choose the video store rental that you'd like us to discuss each episode. And feel free to send us any recommendations that you might have as well through that channel. Okay, Phil.
Well,
what would you like to tell us?
So
please just tell us whether we watched this week.
We watched.
I wanted to do the walk into a video store thing. I don't think I haven't got the energy to do it.
No, it's fine. So we watched a film that we've both never seen before, and I'd actually never heard of before, but you had, hadn't you? Right? Yeah. So we watched the 1981 sci-fi thriller Outland. So this stars Sean Connery as Marshal William T. O'Neill. I'm already laughing. I can't. Right, I'm going to tell you the plot, okay? So, an honest marshal in a corrupt mining colony on Low. Or no, it's not Low. It's IO, isn't it? It's IO.
Because
IO.
and I'd say how I know it's IO is because in
they
the
tell you.
opening titles, it comes up. All the information's coming up on the screen like a computer. Yeah. It goes IO, pronounced IEYE, comma, apostrophe OH IO.
Yeah, that's
just
right.
so you know,
IO.
it's not IO or EO
or Low.
Low.
So an honest marshal in a corrupt mining colony on Io, Jupiter's sunless third moon, is determined to confront a violent drug ring, even though it may cost him his life. After his wife angrily deserts him, he waits alone for the arrival of killers hired by the company to eliminate him. I mean, wow.
What a plot.
I mean, we read that.
Yeah, you sent that to me, didn't you?
I sent that to you, and I was like, "This has got to be in contention, isn't it? Surely."
Phil sent that to me, and I just went, "This sounds like the most Phil movie I've ever heard of. We have to watch it."
And yet, we still put it to a vote, and it did win.
But you had two suggestions this week, which is unlike
Yeah.
you. Usually, you're just like, "We're going to watch this," or I'll be like, "We're going to watch this," and you came up with two crackers.
Yeah.
So I think what we should do going forward is you should pick one, and I'll pick one,
and then they can get voted on.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. That sounds good.
Done.
That's a good idea. I like it.
Yeah. So you put this one forward to me. It's interesting. This is directed by Peter Hyams, friend of the podcast, because of course we had a video store corner on his other movie, 1994's Time Cop.
What a film.
What a movie. Read my soul. What does it say? It says "fuck you." Whatever he says, I can't remember what he says.
It's wear these boots they pay me to wear.
Yeah,
Wolverine boots. Yeah. He also did like Sudden Death as well, didn't he?
He did do Sudden. He's done quite a few Van Damme films. It looks.
He loves Van Damme. I wish Van Damme was in this.
So do I. Actually, he would have been incredible, and he would have done the splits everywhere, wouldn't he?
All over the shop.
He would have done the splits absolutely all over the place. So let's talk. Set the scene a little bit more. So this movie basically follows these miners on this mining colony on the moon. What are they mining, Phil? Was it ever really clear what they're mining?
No, they didn't say.
They didn't say.
Stuff.
They're just mining. They're mining something, like in Alien when they're transporting something. You never really know what it is. Basically, we see these miners in their spacesuits mining something. They're building and constructing all kinds of buildings on the moon. And one of them goes absolutely batshit crazy and decides to cut a hole in his suit, and his head explodes and then floats off.
Fantabulous fashion.
With the brightest red blood you've ever seen hitting the what do you call it? The helmet.
Yeah, it looks
the
like
visor
jam.
of the helmet.
It
looks like jam. Yeah, the radio's jammed, sir. The radio's jammed. Spaceballs joke right there. One or two people get jammed in this, don't they, Phil? Anyway, it turns out 3 people get jammed in this in Spaceballs fashion. Fully is like a raspberry jam, isn't it? It's
all over the place.
It's all over the
violent.
place. It's a violent jamming.
Yeah.
We then turns out that basically some of these workers have been taking this amphetamine, which has been driving them to madness and thus suicide.
Polydichloric euthymal.
Polydichloric ethanol. Ethanol, isn't it?
Ethanol.
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 Ethanol. So I think so I think, in the most part, as a plot line, it's pretty straightforward. Mm-hmm. It turns out this amphetamine is being circulated on this moon, and basically Sean Connery, who's been there for 2 weeks with his wife and his young son, has arrived as the marshal, and he's there to sort it out. He's there to basically sort this colony out and make sure that he keeps everyone in check. But when Sean Connery arrives and he goes and has a meeting with the kind of leaders of the colony, his first meeting, he comes home to find that his wife has left him and taken her son back to the space station with a plan to go back to Earth because she's just bored of him. But it's kind of weird.
That sounds like a short journey as well, but literally that means that she's left him for like a year, because like it takes a year to get back to Earth.
It takes a year to get back to Earth from Jupiter.
From Jupiter.
But the really sad thing is that he was in this meeting, like at this point, you see him at the beginning with his wife in this like little, cabin on the space, on the little pod that he lives in. And his wife's very loving towards him. She's kissing him and cuddling him and, love you.
It made me hate his wife. Like,
made me hate his wife.
She was there for like 2 weeks. Like, seriously, 2 weeks. And then 2 weeks. They were literally there for 2 weeks, and she couldn't take it, and so much that she felt she had to leave him behind his back while he was in a meeting.
Yeah.
And
but do you know what he was doing in that meeting? This made me even sadder.
He was discussing getting treats for his wife, wasn't he?
He was. He said, he stood up and he said, and yes, of course, my wife's here also, and if any of your wives would happen to like to be friends with her, maybe provide some treats. Her name's Carol. She'd love to meet you. She's a very lovely lady.
Yeah, and then she just
please
off.
say hello. She's quite lonely at the moment. And then he sits down there like, oh yeah, we'll do that. And then it cuts, and the next thing you know, she's leaving him. Disgusting.
I felt really sorry for him.
I felt really sorry for him as well.
Message.
He was completely on his own in this.
She told him via video message.
Yeah, she told him. Yeah, she announced this via video message, which we have to endure twice because he plays it back again.
In a lonely moment, yeah.
I'm having a lonely moment. So, I mean, that's pretty much the plot. And basically, Sean Connery falls foul of the, shall we say, the kind of the leader of the mining colony,
the
General Manager Shepard. Here played by Peter Boyle. I think Peter Boyle was really good in this. Actually,
he was really good.
And he basically runs the kind of union on all these miners that are in this colony, doesn't he?
Yeah,
and
he's like he's like the leader, and it's sort of quickly he quickly asserts himself, doesn't he? In that very meeting where Sean Connery is sort of introducing his wife and things like that, he sort of very quickly says, "Oh, you're coming into a tough job here, Marshal." Because basically, we didn't explain that Sean Connery plays a marshal, and which is basically like the leader of the police while he's there, and they are on a 12-month rotation. So you can only stay on the colony. You do like rotations on the colony for 12 months, and then you go back to wherever. And he's the newest marshal in town, so he's literally just arrived. And Peter Boyle as Shepard is sort of saying, he comes out, doesn't he, in the first meeting and says, "Oh, we work our guys really hard, but we let them play hard, and we're pretty lenient on them." And it goes quite awkward, doesn't it?
Yeah.
He's like, "Yeah, we're lenient on them, so we let some things slide." And he's sort of giving him, he gives him this very good sort of like speech, doesn't he, where he just looks like an arsehole.
A complete arsehole. And he's like, if you keep out of the way of my boys, we'll keep out of yours. That kind of thing. It's that kind of thing,
Yeah, exactly.
It's basically, I mean, what this is actually based on, I don't know if you knew this, but it's a remake of the 50s cowboy western High Noon.
It is.
So
I've got some trivia about that later.
Yeah, so it basically follows that plot. That film obviously starring Gary Cooper. And this one centers on the same plot. It's basically a marshal. If you think about a marshal going to an old west mining town to have to sort it out with a wife that doesn't want to be there, and the people don't want him there, but he still sticks to his integrity to have to clean it up, and thus ends up with a countdown to a gunfight, which takes place, at noon, ironically in the original film. So that's what this is centered on, and in this, it's the same thing. It's just adapted for space. Really, Phil, it should have been called High Moon, shouldn't it? Oh. I mean, they missed out on a trick there. I said that last night to the person I watched it with, and she was like,
"Yeah, that's way better."
High Moon, High Noon, High Moon, starring Sean Connery. Although we have got Moonfall also in this episode that we've discussed. So
very true.
So I think that kind of outlines the plot. Best scene. I mean, what would you say? What you got anything else to say about this?
Yeah, I will say, right. The first maybe hour of this. How long is it? I did write it down. An hour and 45.
An hour and 40. Yeah, an hour and 40 something.
The first hour of this, I was like properly impressed, of how I thought this was going to be properly cheap. Especially from just the poster is all I'd seen. I didn't even watch the trailer because I wanted to save it. I didn't even want any of it to be ruined. I didn't want to see anything of its style. I just wanted to watch it and be fully immersed. And I will go to say that this looks great. Like the sets in this, there was a lot of money spent on this. Like a lot of money, because the sets are brilliant. The whole. There's some really big sets. The whole like the bar is amazing. It looks like straight out like the Cantina bar. I think you pretty much probably just grabbed that from the set.
I think they did
3 years earlier and put it in there. And it looks like a cross between like
Alien.
Well, yeah, Alien. And again, I've got some really good trivia about that later. But it looks like it was heavily, because again, it was similar time. So I bet you they used some stuff from that. But it looked great, this film. And I thought
it looked
the first
amazing.
Hour had a lot of promise. And then it just went to absolute, just insane That shit.
Insanity.
It was just ridiculous.
Yeah.
Um,
I think that just on that point, I think it even if you remember the titles of Alien, it even starts the same way.
Yeah.
It starts, you have the logo with the space background, and it starts coming through Outland, and there's the green writing coming up on the screen. You know, like
computer
all this
writing.
stuff. And then there's a score which strangely sounds a lot like Alien. Turns out it's Jerry Goldsmith who directed who did the score to the Alien movies.
Yeah.
And it sounds exactly the same.
Exactly.
It's that like ching, ching, you know, a lot of that kind of like
it's exactly the same.
Over the top. It's exactly the same score.
Well, look, let me give you this bit of trivia first before we go into the trivia set. I'm going to give you, because we're talking about it now already. So over the years, right, fans have formulated a theory that this film could very well be set in the same universe as Alien, because Alien was out in 79. This was out in 81, due to many similarities, right? So both were presented by Alan Ladd Jr., who greenlit Alien as president of 20th Century Fox, and Outland as the head of the Ladd Company, and scored, as you said, by Jerry Goldsmith. 9 department heads involved in production design worked on both movies. Each movie features a huge conglomerate that deals in interstellar mining and transport, and is colloquially known as the company, and operates with little regard for the safety or well-being of its employees. Both movies feature a very similar production design that presents a used future where structures and technology don't look state-of-the-art but worn out and visibly aged in both movies. And they both have a protagonist who uncovers a company conspiracy, after which attempts are made to silence them, and they are finally left defending themselves completely on their own. Neither movie is set in a specific year, although Alien was retroactively set in 2122, so they could take place in the same time frame. Lastly, the character Kane in Outland could be homage to Kane, played by John Hurt in Alien.
Wait, hang on. Who was Kane in Outland?
Kane was like he was one of the, wasn't he one of the ones that, hold on, he got killed. Everyone got killed.
I don't remember Kane in Outland.
It's played by Eugene Lipinski. Wasn't he? I don't know. He might be one of the guys that went in like the lift or something.
Yeah, the guy that just got absolutely, maybe. So, we just explained there's a guy in an elevator that goes into an airlock without a suit on, and he decides to go down, decompressurize into the pressures of space, and they're in the elevator, and he's laying on the floor with all his innards hanging out.
He's one of many that blows up.
But I think Alien. You wouldn't have been surprised if a xenomorph jumped out on Sean Connery at any point in this film, would you?
Yeah, right.
And to be honest, for most of it, I wanted a face hugger to attack his wife while she was on the video link.
Yeah,
because she was a horrendous woman.
Yeah.
But no, I definitely. I think the technology and things like that in this, they were pretty fun. I think there were some like ones that made me laugh. Like there was like a full-on QWERTY keyboard that was clunky plastic keyboard that they're using. And
when she's like, was it
analyzing
the
the blood?
When she's analyzing it, and she's pressing like the same 4 buttons on that giant keyboard.
Yeah, she's analyzing some blood to find out whether what these guys are taking that's making them go crazy. And it's like, she's just pressing the same 4 buttons. And then there's also these lockers and doors. They have these keypads, which upon closer inspection appear to be a 1980s calculator, which has just been stuck in. And there's a moment where we see someone open a door, and she goes up to the door and she presses 66666, and the door opens.
Yeah,
and you see it come up on the screen.
That.
Oh, do you know what I was waiting for her to type 8008135 or boobies. I was waiting for someone to type boobies.
That would have been my combination to my locker if I was on that planet.
100% would have been mine too. Boobies, boop. I think everyone's combination would have been boobies. But yeah, and I like the fact that I was just gonna say I like the fact that you need a key card to do anything in this film. Like they all have key cards, and you put them in a slot, and it gives you access to everything. That's true.
Seems like a flawed security system.
It is a bit, isn't it? Just take the key card, open all the doors.
Yeah. Decrypt message. I do love the fact that this is.
What would you say was your best scene, though, Phil?
Best scene. Well, I mean, there's there's two I've got to mention, right? One because it's just terrible. Like it looks bad and it was awful. And it was the scene towards the end where one of the two hitmen. I was expecting this like team of hitmen to come for him, right? On the ship. And there's a massive countdown, and he makes a big deal of the loudest clock in the world, like counting down to when these hitmen are arriving on the next transport onto the moon. And two guys just show up, and with these weird like shotguns, sniper shotguns. That this is a bit odd. And he kills the first one in a clever plot with the help of the doctor, doesn't he? The second one. That was good. In like the tunnel.
The first one he kills, he's in a tunnel that appears to be made out of paper.
Inflatables.
An inflatable tunnel. Yeah.
Yeah.
And he just hacks into it, and the guy gets sucked out into the vacuum of space. And
that was
his
good.
head explodes.
Yeah.
His head explodes. Yeah.
That was great. And then the second one, he's in a giant greenhouse, isn't he? He's in the greenhouse quadrant of the moon. Or whatever.
The bad guy is. Yeah, the bad guy.
Yeah, the bad guy is. And Sean Connery, Marshall O'Neill is in a spacesuit. Fair enough. It was 81, so some of they look a bit janky. Like some of the scenes where he's like walking along the space. It just reminded me of Red Dwarf, like the beginning of Red Dwarf when they're painting the ship.
It's models. It's models.
Yeah, it's all models.
So I like the models in this, though.
They're
I like
great.
the models.
Really that whole again diversion, but the first scene where they do that slow pan down the elevator, and it turns. It's a model, and you see like people coming out of the elevator, which is like a model. Obviously, they superimpose them. But then it swipes over and it transitions into like the real
set.
Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant scene.
Yeah.
Anyway, so the bad guy's in this greenhouse, and he's clearly like the dumbest person in the world, because what does he do? But he decides to try and shoot at, not even at Sean Connery, he shoots at him throwing like a bit of metal screen down. Sean
Connery rips a roof tile off and throws it, and as it falls, it's a giant rectangle that's falling
silhouette.
In 1/6 of Earth's gravity, so it's like falling very slowly in silhouette, and you can clearly see that it's a giant rectangle. It's not a man.
Yeah.
But this guy decides to shoot the giant rectangle, which is outside
the glass.
He shoots den Finster, shoots the glass, and he shoots the glass. The bullet goes through the glass, and obviously, it then ruptures and sucks
him out.
All the plants out of the greenhouse.
But then there's a hilarious bad CGI him going, oh, and he's just his body like flying towards the glass.
His body flies towards the glass, but then did you see what happens? When he goes out into space, it just turns into like red streaks. It just goes, bloop, bloop, and he's dead. Bloop, he explodes. I don't think you explode in space. I think that you freeze.
Yeah, that'd make more sense.
It's a vacuum. It's a freezing vacuum.
It's less cinematic though, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But can we just talk about Sean Connery's Darth Vader impression during that?
I thought exactly that. Yeah, definitely. There was a full-on, like, you might as well have just lifted the sound effect and put it over there.
Yeah, when he's outside this mining colony, he's running around in his spacesuit.
He's breathing very heavily.
Yeah, he's doing like a Home Alone impression, isn't he? This is like Connery does Home Alone in space, basically, at this point. He's got shotguns hidden in special hatches, and he's like blowing windows open, and this is my house, I have to defend it. And at one point, he's running along the roof of this space station, and all you can hear is, oh, and that's him breathing, apparently. I don't know.
Yeah, it's very odd.
It's like, but yeah, it was interesting.
I mean, one scene I have to talk about, because it was one of the hardest bits of film I think I've ever had to watch, was the video call between him and his kid at the end. The kid, no offense.
Can we just say let's just preface this with the fact that Sean Connery is a Scottish man. His wife Carol is very English.
Very English. The most English person.
The most English ever. Paulie, who's the son.
The most American kid ever.
Hey, Paulie comes out with this. He's got an American accent. Yeah.
Having never been on Earth.
Yeah, it's like, where's Paul? Having never been on Earth, apparently he's an absolute American, even though he's been around these two, like, Scots and English person. But it's like, is Paulie there? Can I shoot Paulie? And Paulie goes, hey, Pa, how's it going? You all right? I'm just making a gabagool. Forget about a little spaghetti.
Do you get the feeling, though, that, like, because he has this weird video call with it, doesn't he? Like, because he speaks to his wife, and then he's like,
the kid was sitting in a room with a camera, and that was all. And he was not sitting opposite an actor because he wasn't reacting.
But it is the worst acting I've ever seen.
Painful.
Like, it's absolutely painful.
But Dad, are you coming with us?
Mummy said that we are going to Earth. And he's like, is it nice on Earth, Daddy? And he's like, yes, it is, Paul.
It's wonderful.
Mummy said, it's like, oh, shut up, Paul, you prick. Just put Mummy back on.
What do you think?
Oh, it was just awful. It was just an awful scene. It was hard to watch. You could see. I just wondered if Sean Connery was actually like reacting to that, if he was doing just one half of it and it hadn't been recorded yet.
I don't think Connery had seen it. I don't think Connery had seen it.
He kind of.
I don't think he
would have left. He would have gone. He would have said, "Delete me out of this film immediately."
I'm leaving right now. What do you think of Connery's performance in this? I thought Connery was fucking excellent in this.
Brilliant. Like, really good. It really suited him as a role.
Yeah. I do love how they, for me, obviously Sean Connery with his very noticeable accent. What I love about this, and this is maybe quite more of a question than anything, or just an observation, why did everything Sean Connery have to interact with begin with the letter S? So he's in space. He's on a space station. The villain he's going up against is called Shepard.
Yeah.
He's wearing a strangulation collar to stop him from getting strangled. Yeah.
Well, how did he know he was going to get strangled? I was going to bring that up. I forgot about.
We'll come to that. And how about a nice game of squash? Or, for lack of a better word, how about a nice game of space squash?
Space squash. Plus, he's a marshal. I know it's
Marshall that plays space squash in space on a space station with Shepard.
And Dr. Lazarus. Yeah.
Lazarus.
Interesting. Very interesting. Tell the people about the meat locker scene, because I found that I laughed out loud. I forgot about it completely, but I laughed.
Sean Connery confronts Shepard, and Shepard is clear that he's going to do something to try and take out Connery, the marshal. Yep. Connery himself doesn't really have any friends. His best friend on the station, I say his best friend, this is a guy that went to meet him after 2 weeks and said he felt sorry for him for his wife leaving him and brought him some food, and Sean Connery told him to basically fuck off.
Yeah.
But anyway, this guy ends up getting strangled in a locker with a piece of piano wire, and his tongue hanging out. Phil's doing the perfect impression. When Phil gets strangled, that's exactly what he's going to look like. Joe, I can't even describe it. All I can say is that Phil's bloated, sweaty face has his tongue poking out. It's really quite disgusting. So Sean Connery decides to go investigate this meat locker where he knows the drugs are being imported into the space station. And he finds a giant cow or pig with General Manager written on it. And inside that pig, General Manager, you should say General Manager's amphetamine drugs, is what it should say.
Stash.
But as he reaches inside that festering carcass to pull out the drugs, someone sneaks up behind him and starts strangling him with a piano wire. And Sean Connery apparently collapses to the floor and dies. And in the worst, you knew he wasn't dead because it's only halfway through the movie. Sean Connery, of course, comes back from the dead and decides to kick the living shit out of the guy behind his back.
Yeah.
But as Sean Connery then has killed this guy, and the guy's laying on the floor, he reaches into his turtleneck sweater and he pulls out apparently some kind of strangulation collar that he was wearing all along and throws it on the floor.
Like he knew that was going to be a threat.
Yeah. Well, I'm not going to get strangled on my watch.
It's like, fucking hell, lucky I put that on. I nearly did.
Carol bought me that strangulation collar for Christmas last year. Lucky I brought it with me from Earth.
The other thing that's fucking hilarious about that is when he gets up off the floor, having feigned death by strangulation, how does he start to beat the guy up? He mashes the guy's face against the carcass and absolutely breaks his face with such force. The guy's face explodes against his face explodes
against the side of a dead pig.
Yeah, amazing. What force he's got.
Maybe it's a frozen pig.
Well, yeah, I mean, it was, but still, that's a lot of force.
I tell you what, all jokes aside, there were some really cool scenes in this. Like you talked about that shot at the beginning.
Yeah.
There was a really cool shot really cool camera work I loved in this. There were a lot of scenes with Sean Connery running in trainers or sneakers down very thin corridors and around corners. And there was a lot of Steadicam work in this with the camera following him. The cameraman just holding it. You could see there weren't any rails or tracks. It was a cameraman holding probably a fucking giant 35mm Panavision camera and running after him, you know? There was some really cool stuff. I think it looked great, like you said earlier. Sounded great, had great soundtrack, and it was full of moments of tension, I would say. It was maybe a little dull in places.
Yeah.
But I was pretty engaged by it, I thought.
I liked it way more than I thought I would. And that whole chase scene where he's chasing that guy down, like, and that really like shows off like the sets and stuff in that, because he, you know, go through every set they've got basically in that chase scene, didn't they? But I really liked that. And it was like, it was properly like it was more, it was more violent than I thought the film was going to be. More graphic.
It's a lot more violent.
A lot more sweary than I thought it was going to be. But a little. I felt
it was going to be. I felt it was going to be like a one-man performance when I saw it.
Yeah, I thought.
I felt like it was going to be more intimate with Connery, but there's actually a lot more going on that.
Yeah, but I did find it weird that when, I don't know, it's probably for the mood of the thing, but I did find it weird that when he was left on his own, like to fend against the two guys, the way that like the whole mining town was like,
just disappeared,
desolate. Like this is no one there apart from in the bar.
And speaking of the bar, can we talk about the two people fucking on the podiums while everyone's just stood there
constantly
drinking drinks? Just two people painted black, just buggering each other senseless.
Each other.
Yeah.
A bit weird.
It was quite weird, quite 80s.
Yeah, they had to do that every night.
They did.
They did.
I also, by the way, just speaking about favourite lines, there was the scene when Sean Connery talks to the female Dr. Lazarus at the beginning, and he's really not making any friends, Sean Connery, from the very beginning of this.
No.
But he says, I'd like a report on every suicide event over the last 6 months, and I'd like it really soon, or I might just kick your nasty ass all over this room. That's a Marshall joke. And then he walks off.
Yeah, I love that line. That was great.
But
she was a bitch. She was a bitch to him.
You're nasty ass.
I also like, there's a lot of good dialogue actually between him and the doctor.
Good dialogue. Good rapport building.
I liked. And and there was the scene where, like, you know, he knows the guys are coming, and everyone knows that these guys are coming to kill him. And he's playing squash on his own after his mate had died. And she comes in to visit him, the doctor, Dr. Marion Lazarus. And she says, you know, they have this nice chat, and she says, like, why are you staying, sort of thing. And Connery gives this like massive speech about like his morals and why he's going to stay and hang around to try and like kill these guys rather than just get out of there, sort of thing. And then she just goes, your wife is one stupid lady. You want to go get drunk? And he just goes, yes.
Yes. That's a good scene. That's a good scene.
Yeah. I like that.
You can imagine that, like him being in the old West in a saloon in a bar, and the doctor comes in. It's that, isn't it? It's like it's that kind of thing.
Exactly
any trivia, more trivia on this one?
I've got a few bits. Yeah. So this was sort of interesting. So this is one of the few movies to be released theatrically with the Mega Sound system format. So Mega Sound was a movie theater sound system created by Warner Brothers in the early 80s. It was used to enhance the premiere engagements of a handful of Warner Brothers movies. Theaters equipped for Mega Sound had additional speakers mounted on the left, right, and rear walls of the auditorium. Selected soundtrack events with lots of low-frequency content, thuds, crashes, explosions, etc., were directed to those speakers at very high volume, creating a visceral effect intended to thrill the audience. That sounds good, doesn't it? I mean, I suppose we've got a bit more of that now anyway, with like better sounded cinemas and things, but still.
I will say that I rented this on Amazon, and I had to turn the volume all the way up. I couldn't hear the dialogue.
It was quite a quiet mix, wasn't it?
Yeah. The music and the sound effects were way too loud.
Maybe it was not Mega Sound. Weirdly, in another sort of process, this was the first movie to use the Intravision front projection process. So, which allowed an actor, actress, or other live action element to be sandwiched by a projected background and foreground element all in the same shot.
It was like James Cameron adopted that in a big way for the Aliens, Aliens
exactly.
and Terminator 2.
So very cool. So it was the first film to do it.
Cool.
So, as you'd mentioned earlier, this movie draws on the Gary Cooper classic High Noon from 1952.
Yeah.
So, killers are on their way to kill the marshal, who finds himself abandoned by his deputies, and with none of the residents willing to stand within, numerous villains await the arrival of the killers. As the arrival time approaches, Sean Connery enters a public facility, in High Noon, a saloon, and then a church, and speaks to the townspeople, repeating the classic Cooper line, "I could use a little help." And receiving none.
Wow.
As in High Noon, the response is that his job is to protect them and not the reverse. His only ally is a woman with a sullied reputation, in this case a doctor, who describes herself as being one step short of a malpractice suit. Shoot.
Wow.
Malpractice
shoot.
Gene Hackman.
That's what they fire them out, isn't it? They fire them out of the malpractice shoot into space.
Yeah, right.
They'll fire out the fucking malpractice shoot if you're not careful, Doctor.
Gene Hackman, James Brolin, and Clint Eastwood were considered for the role of William T. O'Neill.
So they were going for that kind of age group.
Yeah, definitely. I could have seen Hackman doing that, but maybe less actiony. Maybe, I don't know.
Popeye Doyle in the French Connection, wasn't he? Was calling that.
Yeah, and then I think we talked about the similarities with Alien, but also. So we said earlier that the film is centered around the fictional synthetic amphetamine drug polydichloric euthamol. That's a hard thing to say. Polydichloric euthamol. In the 1991 film Terminator 2: Judgment Day, the words polydichloric euthamol are seen on a small yellow barrels of explosives.
Get out of here.
Yeah.
That must be in when Dr. what's his name? Miles Bennett blows up the facility.
Click. Yeah. That's cool, isn't it?
Yeah.
So yeah, Outland. I liked it. I will probably watch it again at some point.
Outland. I liked it. I will probably watch it again at some point too.
Yeah.
Pretty cool movie.
Yeah.
Go watch Outland, folks. Sean Connery, 1981. Like, he's blowing the hell out of everyone. He's a curmudgeonly old bastard in it, and his wife leaves him.
But with the neatest trim beard you've ever seen in your life.
Really neat. At one point, it gets shaved, and it's longer again, then it's shaved again. That was quite cool.
But it's sharp as fuck.
Space, isn't it? That's what happens in space.
Yeah, they've got machines to shave you.
And then it grows it, and then it goes back again.
Yeah.
But yeah, and where did you watch this one, Phil?
I rented it on, what did I rent it on? I can't remember if it was Amazon or one of the rental platforms.
You can rent it over there in the UK. You can rent it here as well in the US. It doesn't appear to be on any of the streaming platforms, but it's worth it, I would say. If you haven't seen Outland, or if you haven't seen it in a while, go back, check it out. Pretty good.
Pretty bloody good.
Pretty bloody good. Okay, so that's all we've got time for this week, folks. But join us on the next Movie Mouth podcast slice of movie and TV related podcast fun. But before then, please follow our Facebook and Instagram accounts at Movie Mouth Podcast and hit subscribe on your podcast player of choice. Feel free to leave us a 5-star review if you have the chance. We would really, really appreciate it. And Phil won't come to your house and kill you.
I won't.
There's just one last thing to say, Phil, isn't there?
Yeah.
Go on then. Say it.
No.
You're actually not going to say it?
No.
Shall I do it?
Yeah.
I'm only borrowing your space station.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.